OBU Bison basketball has an interesting history. In 1966 and 67, head coach Bob Bass led the Bison to two straight championship games, winning OBU's one and only national championship, led by National Player of the Year, Al Tucker. Droughts followed as the Bison could not get back to the big dance. In the late 70s, a young man named Bob Hoffman made his way to Bison Hill. He never got OBU to the national tournament as a player, but we just might hear from him later. In the 80s, Robert Davenport graced the Noble Complex with his on-court talents. He too would see better days at OBU in a suit. Yes, Hoffman returned to coach the Bison, sending two straight teams to the Final Four in 1993 and 1994. Would history repeat itself? Would it be another case of 2 years and out for the OBU Bison basketball team? The 1994-95 season began early in the summer. With so many new faces on this year's team, Coach Hoffman thought it best to load up his troops and head down to Brazil. While in South America, the Bison spent time sharing their faith in God in front of great crowds with an interest in the Americans from Oklahoma. The Bison also spent time with kids, just giving them attention and having fun. Brad Thompson proved early on that he was definitely a floor general at heart. The Bison did manage to get some basketball in as they took on numerous pro teams. The fans were excited, and it was a good opportunity for the players to get accustomed to one another's game. But ministry opportunities were the key to this trip, and some of the OBU contingent even got out of hand. Maybe Coach Hoffman missed his calling as a singer and dancer. Once OBU made it back to the States, it was time for the annual team retreat. All the players headed down to Eufaula, where there were times of sharing and meeting, but it was also a great time to relax and enjoy life. School soon began, and it was time to hoop it up. It didn't take long for OBU to prove their style of play was to get up and down the court, with Ennis, Texas senior Eric Jones as their team leader. Running the point would be Brad Thompson, an academic All-American out of Missouri City, Texas. Although he doesn't look to shoot much, his passing skills provided easy baskets for a lot of teammates. Two new starters on this year's team were in their first year at Bison Hill. Spencer Wright, a transfer from UCO in Edmond, and Lamont Ford, a junior college transfer from Weatherford, Texas, were impact players from day one. Spencer's skills in driving to the basket were almost always indefensible, while Lamont spent a lot of time above the rim. Two other key players were Don Newton and Lance Johnson. Each of these players were now going to get their chance to step out and play critical roles on the team. Two new shooters were Corey Harbert and Quinn Wooldridge. While Corey started the season with a bang, Quinn came on strong in conference play, adding a lot of trifecta power. However, this team was a team, and every player had a role. Blaine Moore, Ryan Reekey, David Niven, Mark Taylor, Tito Pena, Bobby Tedder, and Jason Porter all provided support and gave 110%. With the season finally here, it was time to put all the practice to work. OBU wasted very little time as they went right at Southwest Adventist College, with a barrage of monster jams and rainbow three-pointers. Everyone got involved as the Bison rolled to a 124-71 season-opening win. Newcomers Lamont Ford, Spencer Wright, Quinn Wooldridge, and Corey Harbert showed their worth. OBU also got good minutes from reserves Mark Taylor, Blaine Moore, Brian Reekey, Bobby Tedder, Tito Pena, and Dave Niven. The win was definitely a good start to the season. The home opener was on a Friday before homecoming with a 3 o'clock matinee. More like a midnight horror flick for Louisiana Christian, who gave OBU some problems. Eric Jones scored 31 points and pulled down 20 rebounds, and Spencer Wright added 26 points as the Bison pulled out an 87-75 win. In Game 3 against Arkansas Baptist, it was time to show off for the alumni at homecoming. There was one strategy for OBU in this game: take the ball right to the rim. Lamont Ford tallied 20 points, and 4 starters scored in double figures as the Bison rolled to a 109-61 victory. Game 4 gave Southwest Adventist a chance for revenge on the Bison. Everyone got into the scoring column again, with Spencer Wright leading the way with 21 points and Corey Harbert adding 20. Brad Thompson added 15 assists as the Bison score a season-high 139 points in a 139-81 romp to go 4-0. Next up was Panhandle State, where the Bison rained three-pointers led by Corey Harbert's hot hand and a lot of rim rocking by Lamont Ford and Eric Jones. Jones scored 32 and pulled down 14 rebounds as the Bison moved to 5-0 with a 96-83 win. The first real test for OBU came when the Bulldogs of Southwestern came to town. The Bison stayed close in the first half, but the Bulldogs proved to be too much. OBU lost 100-77 on the home court despite a big game from Eric Jones, who finished with 32 points and 19 rebounds. Now how would the Bison react to adversity? That test came against Central Bible College at the Bartlesville Wesleyan Tournament. The game went into overtime as the discipline of Central Bible kept them in the game. In the end, it was too much Eric Jones, who finished with the highest OBU total of the year at 38 points. OBU wins 92-89 in their only overtime game of the year. The Bison needed a big game to break out of the slump, and Don Newton provided the charge. The Orange Texas senior canned a new school record 9 three-pointers, all in a row. After missing his first, Don popped 9 straight, and when he wasn't draining threes, his passing led to easy baskets. OBU was back on track with a 118-82 win over Bartlesville Wesleyan. There was no letting up now as OBU traveled to Durant to renew an old rivalry with Southeastern. This game had to please Coach Hoffman as the making of a great team was evidenced. When OBU had outside shots, they nailed them. When the inside was there, they took advantage of it. It was a great team effort, and it welcomed the coming out party of a freshman named Quinn Wooldridge. Corey Harbert remained on fire, hitting the key shots down the stretch for OBU's confidence-building 87-69 win. The first semester was coming to an end, and OBU basketball was on a roll. It was time for the Dominoes Classic, which is kind of ironic. OBU opponents were starting to have the domino effect. They all kept falling, one right after the other. The first victim of the three-day tournament was National Christian, who could have used the National Guard to slow down Don Newton's three-point shooting. He tallies 20 points in OBU's 111-72 win. Next, the Bison were again taking on Central Bible College, just a few weeks after they had taken OBU to overtime in Bartlesville. What a difference the friendly confines of the Noble Complex make. Eric Jones's 21 points and Brad Thompson's 12 assists lead the Bison to a 94-68 victory. Against Paul Quinn, the Bison used their inside dominance to build a lead, and then Spencer Wright stepped onto the playground with his Showtime moves. This game also saw OBU passing the ball to perfection. I don't know who Paul Quinn is, but I'll bet he never hunted Bison. The final score, OBU 119, Paul Quinn 94. To tune up for conference play, Coach Hoffman brought in a not-too-former conference foe in USAO. Quinn Wooldridge and Lamont Ford came up big, and Eric Jones proved he was the best player on this and many other courts. It was closer than some wanted it to be, but it gave OBU a real test. The Bison held on for a 113-103 win to go 12-1. The Bison wrapped up 1994 with a matchup in the OIC SAC Challenge. OBU's opponent, Langston, found out that the Bison could tickle the twine from 19-9. Langston was as physical a team as OBU faced all year, but intelligent team ball prevailed in the end as OBU won it 96-85. American Indian College was the next casualty as the Bison returned to action after the 2.5-week Christmas break. It was hard to tell the OBU team took time off as 7 players scored in double figures and Brad Thompson added 15 assists. The Bison steamrolled to a 127-62 win to extend their record to 14-1. Barat College was the opening game of the second Dominoes Classic, and just like the first tournament, they all fall down. Bison basketball was on a roll, and Barat wasn't getting in the way. Spencer Wright tallied 31 points to equal his season high, and Lamont Ford added 24 as the Bison wins 107-82. It was another day at the office for the Bison as York was next. 7 players scored in double figures as OBU simply took care of business on their way to an easy 115-59 win. The Bison played very solid against Friends, a very respectable NAIA Division II team. At no point did OBU let up on their way to a 93-63 win. Lamont Ford led the way with 24 points, and Eric Jones pulled down 13 rebounds as the Bison extended their winning streak to 11. The Bison would close out the non-conference schedule as they played Southeastern again, this time in Shawnee. The Savages were ready to play and gave the Bison a good prelude to the brutal Sooner Athletic Conference schedule. The Bison ball movement was in season form, and OBU proved they were ready for league play. OBU closed out their non-conference schedule 18-1 with an 86-79 win over Southeastern. Now it was time for the real season to begin. Welcome to the Sooner Athletic Conference. The Bison opened up play at Oklahoma Christian, and Lamont Ford was ready to go to work. OBU mixed things up like a prize fighter with a flurry of threes followed by a knockout dunk. The second half saw reality catch up with the Eagles. They could match OBU man for man with most players, but the one thing they didn't have was a player who could stop Spencer Wright from taking it to the hole. OBU outscored the Eagles 21-7 in the last 8 minutes and started SAC play with a critical road win 74-68. This was to be the first of many great second-half comebacks by the Bison. The Bison stayed on the road as they headed out to West Texas to face conference newcomers Wayland Baptist and Lubbock Christian. First up was Wayland, where once again the Bison were down in the second half. Coach Hoffman went to his bench, where Quinn Woldridge and Lance Johnson came up big. The second-half surge gave OBU another come-from-behind win, 88-83, which was also OBU's 20th win of the year to go with only one loss. In probably the weirdest game of the year, almost nothing went right for OBU while the Chaparrals of Lubbock Christian were on fire. The Road Blues caught up with the Bison as a close game at halftime turned into a zebra-aided blowout. Lubbock wins at 99-73, dropping OBU to 20-2. But there was no time to worry about that loss. The top-ranked and undefeated OCU Chiefs were coming to town. Saturday night, January 28, 1995. Most people who entered the Noble Complex that evening had no idea what they were in store for. It was the Oklahoma City Chiefs, the team that knocked OBU out of the national tournament in 1994. Sure, local rivalries like OU-OSU and Texas A&M get more publicity, but anyone who's been to an OCU-OBU game knows the battle is as fierce as any. The stars were Eric Jones for OBU, who hit an early three-pointer to give the Bison a boost. On the other side was Brian DeBose, who instead of hitting threes, he picked up three. 3 quick fouls, that is, and had to sit down early. The trifecta light was on for both teams as Don Newton and Corey Jenkins traded baskets from downtown. With the absence of Brian DeBose, the Bison could expose the Chiefs' defense, and on the other end, Brian Hopgood would now be getting all the attention. Both teams were connecting from three-point range, but it was apparent early on that Quinn Woldridge, a true freshman, was not fazed by the magnitude of this battle. The Chiefs rallied behind their foul-plagued leader and maintained the lead at the break. Lamont Ford came out hot in the second half, getting his turnaround jumps to fall. The Chiefs were now in serious foul trouble, which led to some easy baskets for OBU. Brian DeBose never did get on track, and his mistakes even led to Bison baskets. Late in the game, the Bison were trailing, but were still content to go inside and post up the bigger but slower OCU defenders. Corey Jenkins remained hot, giving OCU a 5-point lead late in the game. But for every Chief basket, there was an OBU answer, and this time Eric Jones retaliated. After Walsh Jordan's basket with 3 minutes to go, the Chiefs were clinging to a 5-point lead, but the Bison didn't quit. They still believed they had a shot to knock off number 1. 2 missed free throws by Brian DeBose gave OBU the ball with under 2 minutes to play. That's when Quinn Woldridge went up for a three-pointer and drew a foul. The 3 free throws brought OBU to within 2 points. Brian Hopgood missed a chance to ice the game, and OBU finally took the lead late. That led to one last desperation attempt by OCU to win it.
OCU, 5 seconds to play. OBU up by 1 point. That's Corey Jenkins with the basketball, pushing the ball up court. He puts the ball up. Final shot. It won't go.
Oh my gosh.
It won't go. OBU wins this basketball.
OBU wins.
The Phillips University Haymakers were next on tap for OBU, and the Bison came in feeling the thrill of victory over Oklahoma City, and it showed. Don Newton was the hot man early on, and then it was just great team basketball. In a season full of close conference games, Spencer Wright tallied 29 points, and Brad Thompson added 20 assists in what would be considered OBU's blowout. The Bison hit the century mark to win it 101-89. The Bison started the game at Southern Nazarene on a three-point frenzy, as Don, Eric, Brad, and Quinn all got into the act. But it wasn't all shooting from downtown. The Bison also took the rock to the rim. The Bison kept the inside-outside routine going strong, including a record-tying 9 three-pointers from Don Newton. This game would go down to the wire, and OBU prevails once again on the road, 96-91. It was now time for those beloved Oklahoma Christian Eagles and their noisemakers to come to town, but they ran into a team on a mission. OBU's ball movement was at peak form, and they were finding the easy shots. Foul trouble began to take its toll on Oklahoma Christian, while the Bison were cool under the collar. When Quinn Wooldridge drained a late three-pointer, it was all over, and the Bison had another win, this time 78-75. Wayland Baptist made their first trip to the Noble Complex, and Don Newton welcomed them with a dose of three-point goodness, canning 8 in the first half alone. Don wasn't the only one hitting from downtown. Quinn and Brad were also able to find the range. The Pioneer defense decided to take away the outside shot in the second half, which led to Eric Jones taking over inside. Just as Don scored 24 in the first half from outside while Eric went scoreless, Eric gathered 24 points in the second half while Don was silenced. In the end, the Pioneers were the quiet ones, suffering a 103-96 setback at the hands of the Bison. Don Newton never cooled off from the Wayland game as Lubbock came to town. The Bison jumped out to a lead with threes, but the size mismatch in the middle was apparent as Lamont and Eric took control. Despite the success, Lubbock again was causing OBU fits, but in the end, Eric's 20 rebounds led to easy baskets, which led to another win. It was another wild Saturday night at the Noble Complex and another 83-82 win. OBU was now 26-2 and headed to OCU for the rematch. Although things didn't go very well for the Bison in their 105-78 loss at Oklahoma City, the spirit of determination was still evident. Eric Jones played one of his best games of the year in the middle of the loss, grabbing 10 boards and chalking up 31 points. His performance all but wrapped up Conference Player of the Year. The Bison once again had offensive success at Phillips, but for the second year in a row, the Haymaker shot with reckless abandon and was finding the basket. Lamont Ford caught fire in the second half, and the Bison had a chance to tie the game late, but this time it wasn't meant to be as the shot rolled off. The Bison had dropped their second straight game, 107-100. The season finale was against Southern Nazarene, which had gone through a major disappointment after being ranked 4th in the nation earlier in the season. Their job was to play the role of spoiler and rain on OBU's parade. But Eric Jones played with the pride and intensity of a champion, and his success led to the success of others around him. But once again, the Bison found themselves playing catch-up. A late rally would be the only way OBU could pull out another win. The Bison stormed back and won by an 86-83 margin, as SNU's last-second shot to tie the game failed. The Bison finished with a record of 27-4, coming in second in the Sooner Athletic Conference, after some had picked them as low as 5th. The Sooner Athletic Conference tournament was underway, and the Bison were facing Phillips, which had beaten OBU less than a week before. But this time it was in the Noble Complex. Once again, it was going to be up to the seniors to pull off the win. The Bison fell behind by 10 points in the second half, but Bison magic was and always will be unstinking believable. The late rally and key free throws led to an 88-84 win. The SAC semifinals brought Oklahoma Christian to town, and the Eagles played one of their best games ever under Coach Don Hayes. The Bison lost the services of All-American Eric Jones in the first half due to injury, and despite many attempts to come back, today simply belonged to the Eagles. Their 108-85 win meant OBU would have to rely on an at-large bid to get into the national tournament. The Bison did get into the national tournament, but their stay would be a short one. After 2 straight trips to the Final Four, OBU would get knocked out of the first round by David Lipscomb. Despite the 74-63 loss, the Bison had to be proud of their accomplishments. Eric Jones was named National Player of the Year and Conference MVP. He also participated in the National Slam Dunk Competition televised on ESPN. Brad Thompson led the nation in assists and finished 5 short of the national record. Brad also gathered his second straight academic All-American title and was named to the All-SAC team. Spencer Wright was also named to the All-Conference team. Once again, the Bison gave the fans a joyride that will rank with any OBU team in history. For the top 10 plays of the 1994-95 Bison basketball season. At number 10, we begin with the way OBU started most of their games, with a bang. Eric Jones gets airborne in a hurry for the slam, but notice the pass right over the Phillips defense and right on the money from Brad Thompson. Number 9 comes from the game that gives us 4 entries into the top 10 list. OBU's thrilling 96-91 win at Southern Nazarene. This was a three-point shooting free-for-all for the Bison, and Quinn Wooldridge made it count for 4 points by getting a hoop with harm. Number 8 is one of the best plays from Lamont Ford, although narrowing it down to 1 is no easy task. The Bison loss at OCU was painful, but there was no quit in Lamont. Watch as he gets it done at both ends of the court with 2 blocks and then a slam dunk. Number 7 did not affect the outcome of a game. It didn't even give the Bison the momentum they needed to get over the hump because they were already up by 40 points. It took place in the season opener at Southwestern Adventist College of Texas, and it was simply Eric being Eric. Number 6 is a record setter for Don Newton. Sure, he had 9 three-pointers against Bartlesville Wesleyan for a new school record, but this was his 9th at Southern Nazarene in the heat of a serious conference battle and what basketball players call crunch time. Number 5 also comes from Bethany. With the Bison clinging to a 1-point lead and under a minute to play, Brad Thompson had the ball way up near the top of the key. Being the nation's leading assist man, Brad was looking for the alley-oop. It was covered, which meant there was only one other option: drain it. The number 4 play of the year comes from OBU's classic game against OCU in the Noble Complex. It seemed OBU was playing catch-up the entire second half and needed a big play to excite the crowd. On this play, Spencer Wright, the silky smooth Bronx native, had the ball in the backcourt and looked poised to take it down the court. Most Bison fans were anticipating a patented reverse layup or bank shot that Spence had delivered so many times. But this time, Mr. Wright decided to come up with something a little more above the rim. For number 3, we make our last trip to Southern Nazarene for the last moments of the game. The Bison were far from winning this one, clinging to a 3-point lead with 10 seconds to go. As soon as OBU got the ball in bounds, the Redskins were sure to foul and force OBU to make one more free throw to win it. But you can't foul what you can't touch. Brad Thompson did his best bullfighter impersonation as he El Toro'd his way through the defense, going the length of the court and leaving the dirty work to Lamont Ford. Number 2 is a heart-stopper. Pesky Lubbock Christian refused to die in Shawnee and had the ball in the last possession, down by 1 point. They were content to win it at the buzzer or take the 1-point loss. Leslie Wallace controlled the ball at the top of the key, and as he made his move to the basket, Brad Thompson slipped and fell, leaving a wide-open lane for Wallace to penetrate. Wallace took off for the basket with only 3 seconds left and scooped the ball up for the game-winning layup. The Chaparrals were going to steal a win until the sheriff, Eric Jones, used his long arm of the law to block the shot and send Lubbock Christian back to the homestead with a loss. And so that leaves us with the number 1 play of the 1994-95 OBU Bison. This play of plays transcends this one year. It was the shot of a lifetime, one that kids all over dream about, a chance to be a hero, a 3-pointer, beating a good team, no, a great team. How about an undefeated, top-ranked arch-rival? When the OBU Bison signed Quinn Wooldridge, they knew they were getting a winner. But he's only a freshman. Surely he can't handle the pressure of a game of this magnitude. More fans than the Shawnee Fire Marshal would like to know about were crammed into the Noble Complex that night, and when Elijah Maxey missed a 3-point attempt with 20 seconds to go, that left the Bison down by 2. They'll go inside. Safe bet. Give it to a senior. They're game-tested. Maybe that's what the Chiefs were expecting, which explains why the freshman from McAllister was open from the left wing right in front of the Bison bench. In a moment's time, the legend began. For the number 1 play of the 94-95 OBU Bison season, you simply give the rock to the mighty Quinn.
It's good! It's good!
Oh my gosh! Quinn makes...
OBU hits a 3-pointer. There's 5 seconds left in play. OBU basketball has just rocked the world.
Oh my gosh! Larry, this is just a great play. Great play.
As you have just seen, it was not another case of 2 years and out of the national tournament for this year's edition of the OBU Bison. Although they didn't make it to the Final Four, they went further than anyone thought they would. Coach Hoffman's troops proved that good preparation, a solid work ethic, togetherness, and great Christian attitude can lead to great results.
The time is out for fun and games. We are in a battle, but our strength is in His name. Take up your sword, put on your shield.